Yo guys, what's going on? Welcome to the video. It's that time of month, right? It's the revenue day. The day where all the PV begins and people try and pretend that their game is doing much better than they think it is, or the games they dislike are doing much worse than they think it is for a bunch of reasons that they really can't prove. So, before we get into the actual individual revenues of some of the games that I want to talk about today, because it's actually quite interesting. There's a lot to talk about this month. There's some juicy things going on that I want to talk about. But before we get into that, I want you to take a little look here at the historical revenue and downloads graph here, the chart that we've got over the last year or two, right? And we can see from last January through to where we are now, we've had a 10.8% year-on-year decline. Now, you have to remember, this is mobile, right? We don't have the full mobile picture and we don't have console and PC. And the reason why I'm talking about this specifically is because I've been saying for a while now, I think Gacha games, and we're starting to see it, we saw Endfield talking about it, and we know the case with Wuthering Waves as well, really need to start targeting the PC and the console market, because I think the ceiling of what there is to gain in mobile is somewhat fulfilled. You know, there's only so much to grab from mobile now, in my opinion. You know, we're kind of at that limit to what can be gained from it. We're at a bit of a saturation point where I think in the gacha space there is fresh grounds abound in front of these companies for PC and console. And if you look here, going back to January, we're at 261 million on the month. And we come back to, just in March, a drop of 20 million, right? Which doesn't seem like a lot, but there's a bit of a trend here. We saw a continuous growth in revenue until around January last year, where we started to see a bit of a downtrend. Now, of course, global circumstances affect this sort of stuff as well. But downloads have sort of flatlined a little bit, where we've seen revenue decreasing. We've actually seen a bit of an increase at the moment this last 2 months, which is great to see, of course, for the health of the market. But also some would say that maybe more people are getting fucking ripped off. Who knows? But I think one thing this does show is that the PC and console market is ripe for the picking for some of these companies. Now, we know Wuthering Waves has about 70% of its player base on PC and console. The same for Endfield. And I would argue games like Zenless and Genshin Impact, it might be somewhat similar as well. Maybe a little bit less, but somewhat similar. So, with that spoken about, should we hop over into the juicy bit, shall we? Let's talk about some individual games here, shall we, guys? Because we've got some things to point out, right? Lads, girls, the girl gooners spending lots on lads. Insane amount of money again, nearly $50 million. This game should be illegal. It's criminal how much money it makes for how trash it looks. I've got to be fair though, it's not for me obviously, but it's obviously for a lot of people, because 50 million ain't no chump change. This game is printing cash and continues to print cash month on month, pretty much. Next game I want to talk about, which again shows Western sentiment, specifically on YouTube and Twitter, and in certain Twitch streams, really matters zero. Because once again, Genshin Impact is printing cash at $41.6 million. Now, remember, guys, all of these numbers in terms of the mobile numbers are underestimated. You have to take into account some of these games have massive PC and console player bases as well. So you can sometimes maybe double, treble, or even more on some of these revenues, right? So you always have to take that into account. These are conservative numbers, and for some games, they have hidden revenue because of the console and PC bases as well. But I was told that everybody was boycotting Genshin Impact because the game wasn't generous enough. I saw so many Twitter posts about it. I saw so many YouTube videos about it. But once again, it prints cash. It shows that CN and other spending markets and global spending markets don't listen to typically free-to-play annoyed people on social media, and the companies definitely don't either. Now, I'm not here to tell you that people had righteous issues with the game or they were just spouting bollocks. I'm just saying that once again, another boycott in the gacha space and in the gaming space kind of falls flat on its face, right? Because Genshin Impact is still printing money. Hoyo is still printing money, because at number 3, we've got Star Rail coming in with $37 million. Absolutely printing cash once again, and another huge success for Hoyo over the years. Moving on down, an amazing month for Wuthering Waves. great to see them doing really well, even though I love to mock and meme on the Wuthering Waves community. I call them the Arsenal of Gacha in terms of the fan base. I still think it is fundamentally at its core a good game that needs work, and it's great to see them doing well, coming in at $31.75 million. Huge month for them. This is the biggest I've seen on mobile revenue estimates for a long time for Wuthering Waves, I believe, right? Up 7 places as well, so got itself back into the top 10, back into the top 5, actually, and it's probably going to continue to have a pretty decent next month or two as well, with obviously the Cyberpunk collaboration going on, and we all know what's going on there. A lot of people are probably going to be forced to spend if they want to get certain things within the game as well, so probably going to see another really good month for Wuthering Waves, and that's great to see, right? The collaboration does look, there's some issues with it, but overall, from a gameplay standpoint, it looks like a pretty decent collaboration, right? So they're killing it, and I gotta say, great to see my beloved doing really well in the top 5. If you don't know, Arknights is my favourite gacha game, and it's great to see it doing well. 7 years. 7 years. 7th anniversary has really helped it move on to this another huge milestone. But last month, it wasn't slacking either at 21.35. Recently, Arknights has just been growing and growing and growing in terms of people knowing about it and playing it. I think Enfield has been a massive help in that regard, and we're going to talk about Enfield in a second as well, because that's not looking so great at the moment. But Arknights is absolutely smashing it, and I love to see Nikkei killing it. They kind of bounce around from doing all right to insane, so that's pretty typical. We've got Naruto Mobile, don't care. TCG, don't care. And then we move on to Nevernis to Evernis, which has had a pretty decent opening month, if I'm honest. Now, you've got to take into account, I would imagine, just like Enfield and just like Wuthering Waves, this is going to have a huge percent of its player base playing on consoles and PC, probably somewhere between 60 to 80%, so you can maybe quadruple this number, and that might be sort of where you fall on, or maybe even more. It's not the biggest opening month. I know it wasn't technically, but it's the first full month, right? It wasn't the biggest in compared to Bua and Genshin and Star Rail and Enfield as well, which all had incredibly massive months, but they're like anomalies, really. Not every game does that, right? This is still a huge month, so don't let anybody tell you any different, because I've already seen Doom posters on Twitter saying this is a trash opening for the game. Those people are so stuck in, if it doesn't make Genshin money, it's a flop. That's stupid. Right, this is huge money to be making in its first month as well. And I think it's really benefited from another game not doing so well. If we go all the way, keep going, down to 35, down 25 places. Down 25 places from 10 to 35. We've got Arknights Enfield down from 17.2 million down to $4.7 million. Now, a drop-off was expected. We had an extended patch with an extended singular banner and a rerun, and a lot of people weren't going to be pulling on that rerun. A lot of people were coming into this patch as well with a plethora of pulls, so they probably more than likely would have got Zhang without spending, and then most people probably weren't going to be spending for the rerun banner, especially when they know that characters like Mifu are on the horizon as well. So this was expected. I didn't expect it to look so anemic, if I'm honest. I thought it might be around 8 to 10, so it's quite a bit lower than what I was expecting. I do think it will bounce back. Now, there is a lot of people, let's just put this out there, right? I like Arknights Enfield, and I think Arknights Enfield is going to be fine, but there's a lot of people saying that everyone's quit. I'd love to know where the metrics are coming from, other than YouTube views and Twitch tracker, which we'll get into in a moment. Other than maybe like their friend lists and stuff like that, I don't really think it's the best metric to prove how many people have left the game. Although I do believe people are maybe taking a bit of a break at the moment, and that's purely, I think a lot of people, I've seen them talking about it in my own comment section, on Twitter, in videos. A lot of people who liked Enfield are really enjoying Nevernis to Evernis at the moment. Will they come back? I don't know. That's a different question altogether. But I think that's part and parcel of it. Extended patch, one banner, and Nevernis to Evernis dropping when it dropped. It's kind of probably been a compounding effect to why this is so low. Expected, but lower than what I thought it would be. Now, regarding Twitch and YouTube and all that sort of stuff, if you listen to people regarding that, if you look at Twitch tracker, we know we've been talking about it, which we're going to move on to Twitch tracker regarding another game, just to kind of prove a point here, right? Twitch tracker doesn't mean squat, okay? Now, you might say, well, there's a correlation here. Low numbers, low Twitch numbers. come on. I'll give you guys a bit more credit to know that you're not that stupid, right? Twitch numbers don't mean anything. Because if they did, the games at the top wouldn't be making as much as they are, because their Twitch numbers are not spectacular. And now I'm including Wuthering Waves in that as well. Arknights doesn't do very well on Twitch. Love and Deep Space doesn't do very well on Twitch. But and neither does Genshin Impact, but they're still sitting at the top pretty right. Never Needs to Evidence doesn't either, but it's still doing pretty well. So this idea that using Twitch tracker, Google Trends is just ridiculous. Now, I'm not just using that to say, oh, it's because I like Arknights Enfield. I'm not here to defend it or pretend it's going to be the most successful game ever. I think it's going to bounce back. I think next patch, it'll bounce probably up to like 15 to 20 million, include the PC and console. I don't know. Could be talking between 50 to 80 million, maybe. I don't know. I'm guesstimating there at best, right? But I think it will bounce back. But let's just move on to show you how they really don't matter. There's 84 people watching Limber's Company right now, right? A game that I've become a massive fan of, right? The top streamer's got 11 viewers watching. If we go over to the Steam charts, there's 28,000 people playing right now. It peaked over 24 hours at nearly 50,000 people playing, right? 131,000 people at its peak. This game has huge amounts of people playing daily. Now, obviously, they're all on Steam in regards to PC, but this is a game that is doing more than well for itself. But if you look at the Twitch trackers and the YouTube numbers, maybe not so much the YouTube numbers, but the general sentiment around the game and the hype, it's pretty low compared to a lot of other titles in the gacha space, but it's doing more than well for itself, right? Now, we can't really take the numbers in for this because obviously we don't get the Steam numbers. That's its biggest platform as well, as far as I'm aware. So these are just not changed. So, you know, of course, these numbers anyway are guesstimates at best. But this is just my point in regards to not just Enfield, lads, a bunch of other games. Because people are going to play an agenda this month, right? It's Endfield. Everybody loves to hate it. So it's going to be, look at the Twitch numbers. Look at the numbers, you know? Where you can look at these numbers and be like, ooh, if you believe these numbers, right? Which I believe them as a trend. These numbers aren't exact, of course they aren't. But I believe it's dropped down massively. If you believe these numbers, then there's going to be those people out there that are like, well, look at Twitch. Proves it. It don't prove shit. I just wanted to point that out, right? I just wanted to point that out because it's a thing I see people using more and more now. Like, not just saying contest. I see other people flicking over to Google Trends, flicking over to Twitch Tracker like it means fuck. It means fuck all. Especially in CN and the Asian space, right? That people just don't care. It's not what's driving traffic to these games, right? But you know, look at lads. It's got really very little Western marketing or hype, and it kills it every month, you know? Genshin, another game that's kind of proved Western sentiment means little. All the boycott talk on YouTube and on Twitter, and it finishes second in these charts once again. And when you look at numbers that are this close, Genshin could be above Love and Deep Space, because these numbers are probably sometimes could be multiple millions off, right? But yeah, I think it's been a great month for Arknights, sorry, which I suppose Enfield's going to be leeching off its dad for rent, right, to pay the bills. But Hypergriff are still rolling in the money. Altogether, they brought in, what, 30 million for Arknights plus some, maybe 20 million for Enfield plus some, so they're doing all right. Kuro doing all right. But you're seeing the sort of normal ones up here again, right? Uma Musume doing its numbers. Zenless seems to sit around this sort of like 10 to 15 million mark now, right? That seems to be its average mark. But again, another game that I think's probably got a sizable PC and console player base. But yeah, I'm not going to go through every game. I just wanted to point out a few things here to show that narratives are all bollocks, really. And we honestly don't know. We know these games are making far more money than they probably deserve for the most part, and I'm including all of them in that. But I also do like to see, you know, Arknights doing well, I must admit. And I must admit as well, it's good to see Genshin and WoW doing its thing as well. And if you enjoy the games that you enjoy, I suppose it's good to see them doing as well. I don't really care, because as long as the games are good, I don't care who buys a new yacht, really, as long as my game's enjoyable. And I suppose it's good to see Never Needs to Evidence had a pretty decent launch as well. It's kind of expected where I thought it would be. So, yeah, guys, Let me know what you think down below about this month's revenue. Is it over for Arknights Enfield? Is it moving back in with Dad? Do you think the boycott had any impact for Genshin Impact? And do you think Wuthering Waves is probably going to have another massive month next month as well? I'd love to know down below, guys. If you have enjoyed the video, give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you all in the next one. Ta-da.